I never thought I'd be the kind of person to go through someone's phone. That wasn't me. I believed in trust, in privacy, in all those things that healthy relationships are supposed to have. But there I was at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night, holding Mark's phone with trembling hands while he snored on the couch, completely oblivious to the fact that our 3-year relationship was about to implode. It started innocently enough. We just put down a deposit on our dream apartment, a beautiful 2-bedroom place with exposed brick walls and huge windows that let in streams of morning light. Mark had fallen asleep watching basketball highlights, his phone buzzing periodically on the coffee table. I was heading to bed when I noticed the screen lighting up repeatedly. At first, I ignored it. Then I saw her name, Dina. Dina from his office. Dina, who he'd assured me was just a colleague when I'd mentioned feeling uncomfortable about their late-night project meetings. Dina, who'd smiled at me so sweetly at the company Christmas party just 2 weeks ago, complimenting my dress while apparently sleeping with my boyfriend behind my back. The preview of her latest message made my blood run cold. Can't stop thinking about earlier. When can we do that again? My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. This couldn't be happening. Not to us. Not after everything we'd been through together, my mother's cancer scare, his father's death, the promotion I'd worked so hard for that he'd celebrated with me like it was his own victory. We had plans. We had a future mapped out. We'd literally just signed papers committing to a life together. I picked up his phone. His passcode was my birthday. How's that for irony? As I scrolled through their conversation, each message felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. 3 months. They'd been doing this for 3 months. While I was working overtime to save for our apartment deposit, while I was planning surprise birthday parties and cooking his favorite meals, while I was lying next to him every night thinking I was the luckiest woman in the world. The messages were explicit, graphic. Things he'd never said to me, fantasies he'd never shared, a passion I didn't even know he was capable of. There were photos. God, there were so many photos. Her in lingerie I recognized from a shopping trip where she'd asked my opinion on what to buy for a special someone. Him shirtless in what was clearly our bathroom, taken while I was at my sister's baby shower last month. But the worst part wasn't the sexual content. It was the emotional intimacy, the inside jokes, the casual mentions of their lunch dates that he'd never told me about, the complaints about me, how I was too focused on work, how I didn't understand his need for excitement, how I was sweet but boring. Boring. After 3 years of building a life together, I was boring. I sat there on our living room floor, still in my work clothes from a 12-hour day at the marketing firm, reading through months of deception. They'd had sex in our bed, multiple times. Once when I was visiting my grandmother in the hospital. He'd texted her coast is clear the moment I'd left for the airport. She'd been in our home, eaten at our table, used our shower. There was even a photo of her wearing my robe, my silk robe that Mark had given me for our anniversary. The violation of it all made me physically sick. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up, trying to muffle the sounds so I wouldn't wake him. When I came back, he was still sleeping peacefully, one arm thrown over his face, completely unaware that I'd just discovered his double life. I looked at him, really looked at him. His dark hair was messy in that way I used to find endearing. The small scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident that I'd traced with my finger countless times. The lips that had told me he loved me just hours ago at dinner. Who was this man? How had I shared a bed, a life, dreams with someone capable of this level of deception? I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I carefully placed his phone back on the coffee table, went to our bedroom, and lay there staring at the ceiling until sunrise. My mind raced through every option. I could wake him up screaming, throw his things out the window, post everything on social media, call his mother, but something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the business strategist in me that always needed a plan. Or maybe I just wasn't ready for it to be real yet. If I didn't say it out loud, if I didn't confront it, maybe I could pretend for just a little longer that my life wasn't falling apart. Mark woke up around 6 a.m., shuffling into the bedroom with that sleepy smile that used to melt my heart. Hey baby, sorry I crashed on the couch. Long day at work. Work. Where Dina was, where they probably exchanged knowing glances over coffee and touched hands when passing documents. It's fine, I managed, my voice surprisingly steady. I have an early meeting. I'm heading out soon. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that now felt like a mockery, and headed for the shower. While the water ran, I grabbed his phone again. I needed evidence, screenshots, proof. Not because I didn't trust my own eyes, but because I knew Mark. He was a master manipulator in business, and he'd try to gaslight me, make me think I was overreacting or misunderstanding. I sent everything to myself and deleted the evidence of doing so. Photos, messages, timestamps, 3 months of lies documented and saved. My phone buzzed with the incoming files, each one another nail in the coffin of our relationship. You okay, babe? Mark called from the bathroom. You seem quiet this morning. Just tired, I replied, practicing the art of deception he'd apparently mastered. Long week ahead. If only he knew how long it was about to be. For the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I went to work, came home, cooked dinner, asked about his day, kissed him goodnight, all while knowing what I knew. It was torture, but also strangely empowering. Every lie he told, every working late excuse, Every time his phone buzzed and he said it was just Mike from accounting, I cataloged it all. I also started paying attention to things I'd missed before, how he'd angle his phone away when texting, the new cologne I'd complimented him on that he said was a sample from the mall, the gym membership he'd suddenly gotten enthusiastic about after 2 years of refusing to work out, the business trips that I now realized aligned perfectly with Dena's social media posts from the same cities. During this time, I also did my research on Dina, 28 years old, 2 years younger than me, MBA from Northwestern. Started at Mark's company 6 months ago, single, according to her Facebook, though her relationship status had changed from in a relationship to single right around the time their affair started. At least she had that much decency, I thought bitterly. She was pretty, I had to admit. Different from me where I was blonde and athletic from years of morning runs, she was brunette and curvy. Where I was organized and practical, her social media showed someone spontaneous and adventurous. The exciting woman Mark apparently craved, but the more I looked, the more I noticed something else. She wasn't just after Mark for fun. Her messages mentioned his potential, his connections, how he could help her career. She was using him just as much as he was using me. It would have been poetic if it wasn't my life falling apart. Thursday night was when I almost broke. Mark came home with flowers, my favorite peonies that were hard to find in winter. "Just because I love you," he said, pulling me into a hug that lasted too long. For a moment, I let myself melt into it, remembering what it felt like when his affection was real. "I've been thinking," he said over dinner salmon that I'd cooked to perfection even though each bite tasted like ash in my mouth. "Maybe we should start planning the wedding. We've been engaged 8 months now. What do you think about a fall ceremony, a fall wedding?" He was sitting there, cutting into his salmon, talking about venues and guest lists, while actively sleeping with another woman. The audacity of it took my breath away, but I played along, nodding and smiling, even pulling up Pinterest boards I'd made months ago when our engagement still meant something. "I love this venue," I said, showing him a vineyard in Napa. "Remember when we went wine tasting there last year? That was a great trip," he agreed, and for a flash, I saw genuine fondness in his eyes. It made everything worse. If he felt nothing for me, this would be easier. But he did care, in his own twisted way. I was the safe choice, the stable future, the woman he could bring home to his conservative parents. Dina was the excitement, the danger, the midlife crisis he was apparently having at 32. That weekend, he said he had to go into the office on Saturday. "Big presentation Monday," he explained, kissing me goodbye. I waited exactly 5 minutes after his car left the driveway, then followed him. Not to the office, of course, but to Dina's apartment complex on the other side of town. I sat in my car for 3 hours, watching, waiting, documenting, taking photos of his car in her assigned parking space. The timestamp would be important later. When he finally emerged, his hair was wet from her shower, no doubt, and he was wearing a different shirt than he'd left in. He texted me on his way home. "Grabbing lunch with Mike. Be home soon. Love you." I beat him home by 15 minutes, enough time to be elbow deep in laundry when he walked in. "How was the office?" I asked casually. "Productive," he said. And I wondered if that was what he called it. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to leave Mark. I was going to destroy him the way he'd destroyed me. But I was going to do it smart, calculated, the way I'd run marketing campaigns that had made my company millions. Mark had no idea who he was dealing with. My revenge plan started with reconnaissance. I needed to know everything, not just about the affair, but about their weaknesses, their fears, their pressure points. Mark's was easy. His reputation. He'd built his entire identity around being the golden boy at his firm, the one with the perfect relationship, the one his boss trusted implicitly. His parents still bragged about their successful, faithful son to anyone who would listen. Dina's weakness took more digging, but I found it. She wasn't just ambitious, she was desperate. Student loans totaling $200,000, credit card debt, a sick mother whose treatment she was helping pay for. She needed this job, needed the promotion she was gunning for, needed Mark's influence to get it. I started documenting everything meticulously. Every lie, every receipt, every timeline discrepancy. I even bought a voice recorder and started recording our conversations, legal in our one-party consent state. When Mark told me he loved me, when he talked about our future, when he lied about where he was going, all recorded. The universe seemed to be on my side because 2 weeks into my planning, Mark's parents called to say they were coming to visit. They lived in Boston and made the trip to Chicago twice a year. Sweet people who'd welcomed me into their family with open arms, who'd already started calling me their daughter. "We can't wait to see you both," his mother, Linda, gushed on the phone, "and to hear all about the wedding planning." "We can't wait either," I said, an idea forming. "Actually, I want to plan something special for Saturday night, a surprise for Mark." She was delighted. His father, Robert, got on the phone to tell me how happy they were that Mark had found someone like me. "You're the best thing that ever happened to him," he said, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying, "He doesn't seem to think so." Meanwhile, Mark was getting sloppy. The thrill of deception was wearing off, making him careless. He left his laptop open with his email visible. He forgot to delete texts. He even left a receipt from a jewelry store in his jacket pocket, a $300 purchase that I never received. The week of his parents' visit, everything accelerated. Mark was stressed about their arrival, snapping at me over tiny things like how I folded his shirts or that I'd bought the wrong brand of coffee. I recognize this behavior now, guilt manifesting as irritation. He was cracking under the pressure of maintaining his double life. Wednesday night, 2 days before his parents arrived, he made a crucial mistake. He came home from working late with a hickey on his neck. An actual hickey, like we were teenagers. He'd tried to cover it with his collar, but I saw it when he was brushing his teeth. "What's that on your neck?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Oh, this?" He touched it casually. "Weirdest thing. I think I'm allergic to that new laundry detergent. Been breaking out in hives." Hives. Circular, mouth-shaped hives. I took a photo when he was sleeping, adding it to my growing collection of evidence. His parents arrived Friday afternoon. Linda immediately pulled me into a warm hug, telling me how beautiful I looked, asking about wedding dress shopping. Robert clapped Mark on the back, proud of his son who'd made partner at 32, who had the perfect girlfriend, the perfect life. We went to dinner at their favorite steakhouse. Mark held my hand across the table, playing the devoted fiancé to perfection. He even gave a little speech about how lucky he was to have found me, how he couldn't wait to start our lives together. His mother wiped away tears. I smiled and squeezed his hand, thinking about how satisfying tomorrow night would be. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, fitting for a funeral of sorts. Mark said he needed to run to the office for a few hours on a Saturday, with his parents visiting. The arrogance of it was astounding, but I encouraged him to go, saying his parents and I would use the time to work on wedding planning. Instead, I put my plan into motion. As soon as Mark left, I told his parents I needed to run a quick errand for the surprise I'd planned. I drove straight to his office building, where I knew the security guard, Tom, from the many times I'd brought Mark forgotten lunches or picked him up for date nights. "Hey, Tom," I said warmly. "Mark forgot some important documents for his presentation. He asked me to grab them from his office." Tom knew me, trusted me, and waved me through without question. But Mark wasn't in his office. He wasn't anywhere in the building, which I confirmed by checking the parking garage. His car wasn't there. Another lie documented. I went to his office anyway, using the spare key he didn't know I'd copied months ago. On his desk was a framed photo of us from last Christmas, both of us in ugly sweaters, laughing at something off camera. I remembered that day we'd been happy, or at least, I'd been happy. Maybe he'd already been texting Denna between family photos. I left something on his desk, a single screenshot of one of their most explicit conversations, printed on company letterhead. Just enough to let him know I knew, not enough to reveal my full hand. Then I left, saying goodbye to Tom on my way out. Back at home, Linda was looking through wedding magazines I'd strategically left out. "This is so exciting," she said. "I've been waiting for Mark to settle down for years. You're perfect for him, Sharon. You ground him." "He grounds me too," I lied, though maybe it wasn't entirely a lie. He had grounded me right into the earth, buried under the weight of his deception. That evening, we were supposed to have the surprise dinner at 7 p.m. Mark came home at 6:30, looking relaxed and happy. No signs of stress from his urgent Saturday office work. He'd even stopped to get his car washed, probably to remove any evidence of wherever he'd actually been. "How was the office?" his father asked. "Productive," Mark said, the same word he always used. "Got everything done for Monday's presentation." I excused myself to the bedroom, saying I needed to get ready for dinner. Instead, I sent a single text to a number I'd saved under pizza delivery. "It's time." We arrived at the restaurant at 7 p.m. sharp, an upscale Italian place where I'd made a reservation weeks ago. Mark's parents were delighted, reminiscing about their own favorite Italian restaurant back in Boston. Mark seemed relaxed, unsuspecting, holding my hand as we walked in. What he didn't expect was to see his boss, Richard, sitting at a corner table. Or Dina, at the bar, her face draining of color when she saw us. Or the fact that I'd invited them both, separately, for different reasons. "Richard," I called out warmly. "So glad you could make it." Mark's hand tightened on mine. "You invited Richard?" "Of course. He's been such a mentor to you. I thought your parents would love to meet him." Richard stood, shaking hands with Mark's parents, who were thrilled to meet the man their son spoke so highly of. Mark's face was frozen in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He kept glancing at Dina, who was trying to disappear into her martini. "And isn't that Denna from your office?" I asked innocently. "We should invite her to join us. The more the merrier." Before Mark could stop me, I was walking toward her. She looked like she wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. "Denna, what a coincidence. Come join us. Mark's parents are in town and we're celebrating." I couldn't impose," she stammered. "Nonsense." I linked my arm through hers, feeling her trembling. "Mark talks about you all the time, says you're brilliant at your job." I led her to our table, where I'd arranged the seating so she'd be directly across from Mark, next to his mother. Mark's face had gone pale. Richard was oblivious, already deep in conversation with Robert about golf. "So Denna," Linda said warmly, "how long have you been working with Mark?" Six months, Dina managed. "And you're already making such an impression," I said brightly. "Mark says you two make a great team, all those late nights working on projects together." Mark kicked me under the table. I smiled wider. "Yes, Mark's always been dedicated," Richard said approvingly. "Though I have to admit, I wasn't aware of any major projects requiring overtime recently. The silence that followed was deafening. Actually, I said, standing up and pulling out my phone, I have something I need to share with everyone. Mark's eyes widened. Sharon, what are you doing? Just sharing some memories, honey. I connected my phone to the small portable projector I'd hidden in my purse, a gift from my tech-savvy brother that was about to come in very handy. The restaurant had a white wall perfect for projection, and before anyone could stop me, I was displaying the first screenshot. It wasn't explicit, I wasn't that cruel. Just a text from Dana to Mark. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to do it again. Dated 3 weeks ago, when Mark had supposedly been at a client dinner. The restaurant wasn't crowded, but the few other patrons present turned to look. Linda gasped. Robert's face turned red. Richard's expression went from confused to furious in seconds. There's more, I said calmly, clicking to the next image. A photo of Mark's car at Dena's apartment complex. Timestamp visible. Then another text. Your girlfriend has no idea, does she? Dena stood up so fast she knocked over her water glass. I need to leave. Sit down, Richard commanded, his voice like ice. Both of you. Mark was stammering, trying to explain, to minimize, to lie his way out. But I had 3 months of evidence, and I showed just enough of it. The receipt for jewelry I never received. The business trips that matched Dina's vacation days. The screenshot of an email where Mark had recommended Dina for a promotion, citing her exceptional performance and dedication to going above and beyond. I particularly liked this one, I said, displaying a text where Mark had called me boring and said he was only staying with me because leaving would be too complicated financially. Linda was crying. Robert looked like he wanted to punch his own son. Richard's face was a mask of professional fury, the kind that preceded firings and lawsuits. Sharon, Mark pleaded. Please, let me explain. Explain? I turned to face him fully. Explain how you've been sleeping with your coworker for 3 months? Explain how you've been lying to me every single day? Explain how you were planning a wedding with me while telling her I was boring? It didn't mean anything, he said desperately. It was just a mistake. 3 months of mistakes, I asked. In our bed? In our home? The entire restaurant was watching now. Dina was crying, mascara running down her cheeks. Mark's parents looked devastated, their perfect son revealed as a fraud. I have copies of everything, I told Richard quietly. Every email, every text, every piece of evidence that this was happening on company time. Using company resources. I thought you should know what kind of people you're employing. Richard nodded grimly. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. You can be assured it will be handled appropriately. I turned back to Mark one last time. The apartment deposit is non-refundable, but I'm sure Dina can help you with that. After all, she's been so eager to help with everything else. I picked up my purse, dignified despite my shaking hands. Linda, Robert, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. You deserve better. We all did. As I walked out, I heard Mark calling after me, but I didn't turn around. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a moment, waiting for the satisfaction to hit. Instead, all I felt was empty, hollow. Like I'd performed the perfect execution but forgotten that I was executing a part of myself too. But as I drove away, something else started to fill that hollow space. Not satisfaction, not revenge, but relief. Freedom. The weight of his lies, of pretending everything was fine, of being the boring girlfriend, it was all gone. 2 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Mark had been demoted at work, that Dena had been transferred to the Dallas office, that his parents barely spoke to him. The perfect life he'd built on a foundation of lies had crumbled completely. As for me, I kept the apartment. Turned out the landlord was sympathetic to my situation and let me sign a new lease solo. I redecorated everything, painted the walls a color Mark would have hated, bought furniture he would have called impractical. I dated casually, nothing serious, just remembering what it felt like to be wanted honestly. 6 months after that night at the restaurant, I ran into Mark at a coffee shop. He looked older, tired, wearing a wrinkled shirt he would have never been caught dead in before. He tried to approach me, probably to apologize or explain or make himself feel better, but I just smiled politely, like he was a stranger I vaguely recognized, and walked away with my latte. Because that's what he was now, a stranger who taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. That sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else. It's rebuilding yourself from the ashes they left behind, stronger and smarter than before. And that boring girl he thought he knew? She was gone. In her place was someone who knew her worth, who trusted her instincts, and who would never again settle for being anyone's safe choice while they searched for excitement elsewhere. The truth is, I don't think about Mark much anymore. Sometimes, when I'm in my beautiful apartment with the exposed brick and streaming sunlight, I remember that we were supposed to share this space. But then I look around at the life I've built, my life, not ours, and I realize he did me a favor. By showing me who he really was, he freed me to discover who I really am. And that woman, she's anything but boring.